So let's talk about Quizzizz, which is another application that teachers can use in our district. It syncs up with Google Classroom really nicely and is an option for using our new one-to-one devices in the district and following our alignment with rigor, relevance, and relationships in our student strategies. Quizzizz is a fun new alternative to Kahoot, which if you're familiar with that, is a quizzing device. I'll be talking about that in another video here coming up. But Quizzizz is more adaptive to students in some ways, and it can seem to be more student friendly. I think there's benefits to both Quizzizz and Kahoot, but let's just talk specifically about Quizzizz right now. Its question and answers are received on student devices. So that big difference between Quizzizz and Kahoot is that in Kahoot, the presentation will be up on the screen, the questions will be posed there, and then students on their devices will log in and they will answer questions, but the question does not remain on the student device, only the answer options. And so that is one difference between Quizzizz and Kahoot. But in Quizzizz, the question and the answers options are both available on student devices. There's a really funny element to Quizzizz where if the student gets an answer incorrect, it's a pretty humorous response that the system gives. It kind of helps diffuse tension, and as those students that really take themselves seriously and might maybe get upset when they're answering incorrectly on a quiz, the humor in the responses when they don't do well are pretty funny. You can also get reports and immediate feedback on how your students are performing, much like Kahoot. It can also be played with other classrooms in the building or across the town or the state or even the world. And so that's a neat element that you can maybe have your classroom playing against another team in a friendly competition, and that's exciting. What else do I want to tell you? My goal in this application selection is to inform and educate my fellow teachers who are working with developing their technology skills in the classroom and better utilizing our one-to-one devices. Let's see. So the ISTE standards reflected for this technology that I chose are 4C and 7B, using collaborative tools to expand students' authentic real-world learning experiences. I'm trying to utilize technology that will keep them engaged and have them in a collaborative environment, and also provide assessment tools for teachers that can be real and tangible in developing and reshaping their curriculum goals. So Quizzizz is a quizzing site, and you can search for existing quizzes or create new ones. When you launch the site, you can search for quizzes on any topic. You can either type them into the search window, or you can click on one of the topics and it will launch all of the available pre-written quizzes in the site. You can also search up at the top window for all quizzes or just any quizzes you have created previously. You can search just your quizzes or the entire search engine of quizzes for anything. And then you also have a drop-down arrow for reports once you've logged in, and you can look at reports and feedback that is question-specific or student-specific on a quiz that you've already administered to your classroom. When you log in and you create an account, you'll have a profile, and you can create a new quiz. You can find quizzes. You can look back at your old quizzes if you need to for, gathering data or information on perhaps maybe how one class is doing compared to another class if you teach multiple sections of the same course. You can look at collections of subject matter. And there's also all different kinds of memes that you can pull that you can put into your quizzes as feedback depending on if the students answered a question correctly or incorrectly. And as I mentioned previously, those are quite humorous. So if I were to host a game, I could search a subject, social studies, culture, government, economy, and it will tell you, if you search for one that's fairly popular, it'll tell you how many times it's been played, what the average grade level is of the questions on the quiz, what the average percentage score of how students fared in that quiz, and if anybody's liked it and what other subjects it might be relevant to. You can like it or you can add it to your collection if it's written by somebody else. If you're composing a quiz yourself, then it would obviously be in your own collection. You could host a game, you can make it live where all your students are playing against each other in real time, or you can create a quiz and assign it as homework where the student's going to go home and play it, and then the scores will be sent to you later. You can also have students, if they have extra credit or they're struggling, you can assign a solo game where just one student's going to log in and play the game, and then that feedback will go to the student and to the teacher to help determine how that student's doing. When you're playing the game, if you're playing it real time in the classroom, it will show the accuracy and rank of each student and how many points they earned in the score. It will also show their performance stats. It gives quite a bit more feedback than Kahoot, but it will tell you how many times you answered a question correct or incorrect, any that you didn't even try at all, and the average time you spent on each question and the longest streak. One of the things I like about quizzes is you can turn the timer off if you feel like that 20-second countdown like you see in Kahoot is maybe causing stress to the students, or they're answering too quickly just to beat the clock, and they're not really thinking through the question and then the optional responses. You can turn the timer off. So some of my favorite features of quizzes. Students view the questions and options on their own device. It frees up the teacher to walk around and monitor. And you can also just make sure students are on task and help them. You can pause and discuss questions, possible answers, give feedback. It's not possible to do this with Kahoot because once you start it, you have to keep going. You can also turn the question timer option on and off, as I mentioned a minute ago. You can choose whether students view the answer after each question, or if you want to go through the entire quiz and then as a class review the answers after the quiz. That's an option you have with Quizzizz. The reports are really easy to read and understand. You can read them by team, student, or by question and get feedback and data in that regard. And then it's ideal for a bring your own device. So in our district, we're one-to-one devices right now, iPads in the middle school and Chromebooks at the high school, and it works for those, but it also would work on the computer or on a student's cell phone. So as I mentioned, there's a little bit of a difference between Kahoot and Quizzizz, and for Quizzizz, the quiz is on the host computer, but it is also on the player's devices. And so the question will appear in the top, and then the different optional answers depending on if they're on their phone, a computer, an iPad, a Chromebook, what have you. In Kahoot, I'll cover this more when we discuss Kahoot. The question is projected on the main board of the teacher device, and then the players, they can only choose the optional answer. They don't see the question and the answer choices on their device. And these are the citations I used for my Quizzizz presentation. And down here, this Google Drive is the standards that our district has adopted for CTE development, and then the ISTE citation standards.